Hey guys, welcome to Reddit Brew. Today, I will be reading from the r/EntitledPeople subreddit, so let's jump into it. My entitled mother demanded I hand over my house to her because my little sister is pregnant and needs it more than me. Some background. I, 31-year-old male, have a sister, 28-year-old female, that has been the golden child to my mother for as long as I can remember. My parents divorced when I was a teenager because my mother cheated with an old high school boyfriend. My mother has always been controlling, manipulative, and narcissistic. While living with her, she seemed to believe she had total authority over me. Anytime she so much as snapped her fingers, she'd snap them and order me around like a dog. It was demeaning. My sister was her mini-me and always backed her up. So, no surprise, I went to live with my dad full-time after they split. My sister stayed with my mom, and both of them pretty much stopped speaking with my father unless it was about money. My father was very business-oriented and started teaching me how to do his line of work as soon as I was 16. After 12 years of working for my father, I was made a partner in his company. Unfortunately, about 8 months ago, tragedy struck. My father had become somewhat immune-compromised from living an unhealthy lifestyle and died at only 60 years old after he caught C-19. Now to the story. I met my mother and sister for the first time in years after we had a socially distanced funeral for my father over video call. My father was cremated by his own request and buried in a local cemetery. My sister seemed to grieve, and my mother, being the narcissist she is, looked indifferent and unsympathetic the entire time. My father was a great man, always did his due diligence for his children. He was honestly too good for my mother. And the last time they saw each other, she screamed at him that he owed her more money, then threatened to sue him. He declined, as he'd paid his alimony and child support as long as he was legally mandated to. He even put $30K toward my ungrateful sister's college fund. But when he and my mother saw each other last, 10 years after the divorce, he was no longer legally required to send her money anymore because of the judge's ruling. She is by no means broke, might I add. She works the same job she has had for nearly 3 decades, fully owns the old family home we used to share, and even rents out 2 of the rooms in it to Airbnb regularly. She's by no means hurting for money, just greedy as hell. Anyways, sometime after the funeral, my dad's will was read. Apparently, he'd figured that if his heavy smoking didn't eventually do him in, something else would. So he had a very recent will prepared. I was willed nearly all of his assets, from most of his money to his business and house. He left my sister a car and about $10K in cash. My mother got $1K and a few other items that she'd been claiming were rightfully hers since the dawn of time. Some more insight on my sister. My sister pretty much went from finishing 2 years of community college to living off her boyfriend and only working part-time online for several years. When lockdown hit, her boyfriend's job started downsizing little by little, and eventually he was only able to stay on part-time, which hampered hers and his finances. He told her she needed to look for a job, and surprise, surprise, she got pregnant. She claims it was completely accidental. One evening, around a month ago, I got an unexpected knock at my door. When I answered, I was unpleasantly greeted by both my mother and sister. They both barged right in without even asking and made themselves comfortable in my living room. My girlfriend and I shared a look of confusion, and I asked why they'd come by. My sister was giggling and looking all over, opening doors, and seemingly giving herself a tour of my home. My mother had just plopped herself down on my sofa and snapped her fingers while demanding a cold bottled water. I asked what they were here for. My sister just ignored me and continued snooping around. Not before long, I hear her yell from down the hall, "Mommy, it's perfect!" My mother finally spoke up and said, "Well, I think it's time you did your brotherly duty." I was confused. My mother then proceeded to say, "When your father passed, this house should have gone to me. since I was his only spouse. You can fix this now. Your sister needs this house so much more than you. She's the one with the baby on the way. Since this house should have been mine, I want to give it to her. I took a deep breath and stated loudly, "That is not fucking happening. You don't get to order me around anymore, especially not in my own goddamn home." My mother started snapping her fingers at me and stated, "Stop! I am your mother, and as far as you're concerned, I am your god. That means you listen to me and do as I say. This house is rightfully mine, and your sister will live here. Consider this your formal eviction, but since I'm gracious, I'll give you 2 weeks to pack your bags and transfer the deed to me." I calmly grabbed my cell phone and started dialing. My mother quickly stood up and yelled, "What are you doing?" I retorted, "I'm doing what I should have done as soon as this shit started. I'm calling the cops to get you out of my house." She started swiping at me and managed to knock my phone out of my hands and proceeded to try and stomp on it. Thankfully, I was quick enough to snatch it up before she could. I went back to dialing on my phone and said that if she didn't leave, I would have police come and remove her by force. My sister came barreling in between us, holding her arms out and saying that I should just do the right thing for once and be a good brother. I snapped and said, "Oh, really? I'm the bad sibling? Last time I checked, I was the one who's had to actually work for a living. I had to do all the chores in the house while you just sat on your ass being a princess. You've had everything handed to you. You're a complete mooch. So no, I don't owe you shit. Now both of you get out before I call the police." My sister started to tear up, crying like a baby, and said, "Mommy, make him stop." My mother began hugging her and kissing her head while giving me a death glare. Then she seemed to think she'd gotten smart and said, "You know, if you do call the police, I can just tell them that you hit me. And who knows, I could maybe say to everyone you wanted to do a lot worse to a poor pregnant girl in need. I don't think that would be a very good thing for you." I cut her off and said, "Just stop. It's 2021. I have cameras in this house, which means we have evidence of you openly stating you'd lie to the police. I don't think that would be so good for you. If looks could kill, my mother would have blew me up like a tactical nuke, but she quickly deflated and started dragging my crying sister out by the arm. My sister was somehow acting like a complete toddler and broke loose of our mother's grip to sit down on my porch step and have a tantrum. I was then treated to a show of my mother trying to drag my sister off of my porch steps, but she latched onto the porch rails and kept saying, "You promised me," over and over again. My mother then got my sister to the car, told me to go to hell, gave me one last snooty look, and drove off. I thought that was the end of it, but letting things go was never something my mother did. After a few days, I started getting messages from people I know and some relatives online, some furious with me, and others just having questions asking what was going on. I had no idea what was going on, so I asked what they were talking about. I got screenshots sent to me of my mother and sister making posts and rants on Facebook, which I couldn't see as I am blocked by both of them, stating that I was a greedy, heartless bastard who stole the house that was meant to be my sister's inheritance right out from under her by apparently paying off the lawyer who handled Dad's will. I called my lawyer and gave him copies of all the screenshots. He sent them a letter, and my mother called me in an absolute fury the same day the letter was delivered. I told her that if she and my sister didn't redact all of the untrue social media posts and tell the absolute truth, I'd send all of the information I have to the whole family, her boss, and upload the videos we'd recorded of her online. Then I'd sue her on top of it. She called me unreasonable and that she just did what she did for my sister's sake, then went into a full-blown lecture reiterating her belief that my sister still needs the house more than me. I bluntly stated I didn't care, and if she didn't redact everything and tell the truth, I'd make sure her career would be over. She begrudgingly said, "Fine, you win. Have it your way and keep the fucking house." My sister and her boyfriend ended up moving in with our mother to save money. but she put them in the basement to keep her Airbnb running. My sister started crying to me that she can't live upstairs, and I'm pretty sure the two of them were fighting with each other because all my sister did after that is complain online. And for those of you who have read this far, it's not the end of this story. Stay tuned for the rest soon. You all know from my last post that my mother tried to act like she's in charge of my life and acted like my house was hers to give away. Well, a couple of weeks had gone by without any word from my mother or sister, other than what I was seeing on my sister's social media. But what came next surprised me. I got a frantic call from my sister saying that her boyfriend was questioning whether or not he was the father of her pregnancy. He was apparently threatening to leave if she didn't provide a paternity test. My sister swore up and down to me that she's always been faithful to him. I admit, I too believed there was a chance she could be lying, so I suggested they get the test. My sister went on to say how they don't have a lot of money, so I offered to pay for it, as long as she didn't come to me asking for money or favors often. She quickly agreed. I arranged for the test, and even shelled out extra to make sure we got the test results ASAP. I hadn't met my sister's boyfriend yet, so I asked if they wanted to go out for lunch to meet. I know how difficult it is to live with my mother and figured they both probably needed a break. When I met him, I started to understand a bit more. He's half Hispanic, and my mother is quite the closet racist. I put two and two together and figured my mother was behind some of this, so I decided to take the guy out for beer a few days later. My sister is not a bad person, just very spoiled, and her boyfriend was extremely nice, so I wanted to make sure they were okay. While at the pub, he spilled his guts to me. He said that my mother had been whispering in his ear about how my sister is just like her, how she's cheated before, so my sister might have the same tendencies. This made him have doubts that grew every day, and he said he wasn't sure if my sister didn't cheat, or possibly got pregnant on purpose, so that she wouldn't have to work anymore. Sadly, I knew he was probably right about the work thing. He stated that my sister is a completely different person when she's not around our mother, but ever since they've been living in my mother's basement, she's become more and more like a child. After what I saw at my house, I wholeheartedly believed him. I asked if he suggested she get therapy and move out ASAP. He admitted he's wanted to, but didn't have the money and had been walking on eggshells around her and our mother for a while, so he never talked about it to avoid fighting. Well, I guess that made some brotherly instincts I didn't know I had, because I started to realize that if I was going to have a niece or nephew, I couldn't let them live with or be raised by my toxic mother. So I told him that if the DNA results came back positive, I'd offer him a job and training at the company. He was so grateful. Well, the day of the DNA test results coming in the mail came pretty fast. Since I don't and never have trusted my mother, with my sister's consent, I preemptively got the clinic to send a copy of the DNA results to my address as well. Which, good thing I did, because my sister called me saying they weren't in the mail. I asked who got the mail from the P.O. box. She answered it was our mother. That pretty much confirmed my theory that she was trying to force out my sister's boyfriend. I called my mother and asked if she'd taken the DNA test results. The following conversation is more or less what I recall. Hello, mother. I heard that sis's DNA test didn't come in the mail today. Oh, yes, but it could be here soon. Did you take it? I know it arrived today, as I paid to have it set as priority mail. What? How dare you accuse me of such a thing? I would never. Okay then, I guess I'll just bring over the backup copy that was sent to me. Oh, you got a copy too? Yeah, I had one sent to me as well. Sis gave her okay and everything. I guess I'll just call her then, and we'll meet up. Wait, that's not I hung up the phone and called my sister right away. I picked up my sister and her boyfriend from my mother's house and drove to a local diner restaurant. We opened the envelope together, and sure enough, the test results were positive. My sister's boyfriend was so happy that he actually asked her to marry him. She said yes, like half a dozen times. It was a very sweet moment. The little vindictive part of me was just waiting to see my mother's face when she got the news. When I took my sister back home, her and her boyfriend's stuff was in the process of being put out onto the lawn by a few men we didn't recognize. Our mother came huffing outside in a rage while holding the DNA test results she claimed never arrived and began verbally tearing into my sister. "How could you make a baby with that racial slur? I thought you dating him was just a stupid phase, but now you're gonna have his baby? I would have been sort of okay with having this little bastard around if you weren't raising it in my home, and he wasn't around anymore." Then she turned to me while snapping her fingers and said, "And you, I hope you're proud of yourself. I tried to make this family normal, but you wouldn't do as I say like a good son should. And now all of my plans are ruined. Well, she's your problem now, OP. I no longer have any children." That night, I let my sister and her boyfriend stay in the spare room while we looked for an apartment for them. Thankfully, a friend of mine works in real estate and helped arrange an apartment for them ASAP. Like I promised, I gave my sister's boyfriend a job. He's a quick learner, and I have no doubts he'll go far and make a good wage soon enough. My sister is now in therapy, paid for by my company's insurance, and has already started to act more mature than I've ever seen her. She's stopped referring to our mother as mommy, and has even started talking about her the way I do. She came to me recently and said that therapy made her realize a lot of things, and told me I was right about her being a spoiled mooch. She's determined to be a good mother and provider for her child. Her therapist seems to be doing a really good job. As for my mother, I got a restraining order against her, and I urged my sister to do the same. Great googly moogly times 1000. After reading the first half, I had written the sister off completely, so I'm so glad she made a full recovery in part 2. OP and his sister are both perfect examples of children raised by narcissists. It really can go one of two ways. The child either hates their narc parent or idolizes them, and OP and his sister portrayed that. Of course, OP was treated like Cinderella, which probably swayed his hatred. But regardless, that mother is certified insane, and a restraining order was definitely the way to go. That woman has issues not even therapy could fix, and urging his sister to do the same is a good idea, especially for the baby's safety. Who knows what that woman is capable of? But I digress, and I really love how this story turned out, and I wish OP's sister and baby, and OP's future brother-in-law the best. But anyways, that is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed that story and update. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I truly appreciate when you do, and I will see you in the next Reddit story. Bye!